In April 1986, a catastrophic event unfolded at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, marking the largest nuclear accident in history. A test gone awry triggered a devastating explosion in reactor block 4, unleashing a chain reaction and igniting a fire that spewed radiation across the region. The aftermath was catastrophic, prompting swift and decisive action from authorities to contain the fallout. In the wake of the disaster, vast swaths of territory in the Soviet Union, now northern Ukraine, were placed under quarantine to safeguard public health. The specter of radiation poisoning loomed large, evoking memories of the horrors of World War II and the tragic aftermath of Hiroshima. The gravity of the situation demanded urgent responses to alleviate fears and prevent widespread panic. Government officials faced the daunting task of reassuring the populace while also conveying the stark reality that certain areas would remain uninhabitable for the foreseeable future. The establishment of a restricted zone was imperative to mitigate risks and protect public safety. It was crucial for the Ukrainian people to understand the dangers posed by Chernobyl. Even brief exposure within the restricted zone could have profound health consequences. In response, most individuals heeded the warnings and refrained from venturing into the contaminated area. The harrowing accounts and images of the disaster's victims served as powerful deterrents, reinforcing the importance of avoiding exposure to radiation and the heightened risk of cancer. The establishment of the restricted zone underscored the severity of the situation, compelling people to prioritize their well-being and steer clear of the hazardous environment. Despite warnings and restrictions, some individuals attempted to enter the Chernobyl exclusion zone out of curiosity, disregarding the ongoing risks of radiation exposure. While radiation levels have decreased over time, entry into the area remains prohibited due to the lasting effects of the nuclear disaster. One challenge authorities faced was the inability to prevent wildlife from entering the exclusion zone. Reports emerged of deformed livestock and abnormal animal births following the accident. Despite these challenges, scientists and researchers were drawn to the area to study the impact of the disaster on wildlife. To study the wildlife safely, researchers utilized innovative methods such as wearing specialized protective gear or employing cameras and drones for observation. They also analyzed animal tracks in the snow, providing valuable insights into the movements of native species within the area. Despite the risks, scientists were heartened to discover that Chernobyl's wildlife had adapted to the environment and continued to thrive. They closely monitored the animals for any signs of mutations or health issues. Setting up cameras proved to be an effective method for observing passing animals, revealing the presence of deer and foxes, and indicating that the populations of these species were slowly recovering. The findings regarding Chernobyl's wildlife were highly encouraging, suggesting a potential future where the area could fully recover from the nuclear disaster. Building on this success, scientists proposed a project to enhance biodiversity in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which was widely supported and led to the establishment of a national reserve for biological diversity. This reserve continued the efforts to keep humans away from the area, allowing the animals to thrive undisturbed. As time passed, it became clear that the animals were benefiting from the newfound peace and seclusion. The flora flourished, and the fauna moved freely throughout the sanctuary, reclaiming their natural habitats. While the dangers of radiation and nuclear technology loomed large for humans, the animals thrived in their newly reclaimed territory, finding solace in the absence of human presence. Chernobyl became one of the few places in the modern world untouched by human interference. Over time, the area began to regenerate, with nature taking its course. While scientists remained vigilant for any signs of radiation-induced mutations or tumors in the flora and fauna, the overall picture was one of hope and resilience, showcasing nature's ability to rebound even in the face of such a catastrophic event. The curiosity surrounding the health and status of Chernobyl's wildlife has captivated people worldwide. It represented one of the first opportunities to directly study the aftermath of a nuclear explosion on animal populations. Surprisingly, researchers found that the populations of wild boar, roe deer, and foxes in Ukraine actually increased post-disaster, defying expectations of a sharp decline. These animals not only survived but reproduced at a rate that outpaced the effects of radiation. Years later, the restricted zone transformed into an unintentional animal reserve, carefully patrolled to minimize human disturbance. This hands-off approach allowed nature to reclaim the area at its own pace. Decades passed, and the results astonished the world. Despite the devastation, several animal species not only recovered but flourished. Wildlife experts attributed this unexpected resurgence to animals migrating from distant regions to repopulate the area. Remarkably, researchers discovered species in Chernobyl that hadn't been seen for decades, including brown bears, European lynxes, and bison. The environment also prompted evolutionary adaptations, such as a frog changing its color from green to black for better camouflage. Chernobyl's wildlife showcased resilience and adaptation in the face of adversity, challenging preconceived notions about the long-term impacts of nuclear disasters on ecosystems. The evidence indicates that humans pose a greater threat to wildlife than radiation in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Despite the lingering radiation, animal populations have thrived in the absence of human interference. This suggests that human activities, such as habitat destruction, pollution, and hunting, have a more significant impact on wildlife than radiation from the nuclear disaster.